Awesome. Well, I am very happy to be here to share this afternoon with you all. I'm just going to sit here and, I have a lot to share, like with all of you, based on a lot of the things that I've experienced. But how many of you in this room have been part of an orchestra?
Right.
One, two, three, four, maybe. Well, I do think that cybersecurity, and as Eric was talking about the unsung heroes, is like we're all part of an orchestra. Whether we believe it or not, we are. We're all here today, right? We're our own band today, leading probably a bigger orchestra back in our own lives, wherever we work. And so I think this is where, the message I wanted to talk about today is really emergency operations management related to a cybersecurity incident. Here, I had the pleasure, this was many years ago, I had the pleasure of helping out Erie County Medical Center up in Buffalo, New York. They were hit with ransomware, and so one of the things, they called me in day 2 to help out. At the time, I was working in a consulting firm, and I was the recovery expert at the time. With the many hats that we all wear, we kind of find our ways. And based on what Eric just shared with you with my credentials, I'm a forever student, constant learner. I've been self-taught in many ways. I read all of the HIPAA regulations, all of that, when I first started from 1996, but we will have the pleasure of rereading it come September of this year, when the new notice of privacy rulemaking comes out. So we'll go again. And so based on that, though, the experience I had with Erie County Medical Center was fascinating. How many of you have actually had hands-on experience with a disaster, a ransomware incident? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3. A couple of you. This is great. Great news. So what I'm about to share with you today, you might identify with, and you might also have some things to add on to as well. But I'll talk about the experience I've had with Erie County Medical Center, and then also what I'm doing here at the University of Illinois, Chicago. There's a parallel to Muscle Shoals as well here. And I think, so when I got there, the first thing I asked for was, give me every single Post-it color you have, every size of Post-it you can buy. And I ran into an argument between the CEO and the CFO. The CFO didn't want to spend the money. The CEO was like, go get it. She needs it. We got to do this. Because what I wanted to do was carve out a wall, start putting together different workflows with different Post-it notes where you could start moving Post-it notes all over the place. So likewise, in cybersecurity, we're always moving some people around, right? We're buying different systems. Likewise, I needed to know I've got to have green Post-its for certain types of situations, different workflows. And again, this is a level 3 trauma center in the middle of Buffalo, New York, right? So they pull in a lot of patients from all over the place, being, level 3. So based on that, I was like, well, okay, please give me the Post-it notes. I need construction paper, something to get it on the walls. So we had different silos of where I presented, okay, the clinical workflows, the financial workflows, technical workflows, administrative workflows, and we worked through that. So once I got that, then the next argument came, well, do we go get laptops? Do we get pagers? I said, let's go get pagers. How many of you ever used a pager in your life? See, you all have experience. So we are all musicians in all of this too as well, right? We know how to play with a pager. And so, but that is something that, organizations should buy into based on this. And so I said, let's go get some pagers. The younger doctors, they're like, what's a pager? They've never seen one, didn't know how to use it. I told the chief medical officer, you deal with that. Well, you get the pagers. And, so then the CFO was like, okay, I got to cut another check. I'm like, yes, you're going to be spending a lot of money today. And so the CFO was like, well, no, I don't want to. I don't have it. I'm like, no, you do. Cybersecurity insurance, we'll call them. We'll talk to, the carriers, get all the carriers on board, tell them what's happening. I said, you're going to cut all your, connections to all of your governmental programs, call CMS, tell them, we got to stop. So anyway, long story short, there were a lot of things that we needed to do. But you know what my biggest challenge was? Anyone guess what the biggest challenge was for this ransomware? Because I asked all the nurses, what are you hoarding? All the nurses hoard stuff. There's papers everywhere. And so I think this is where it was very advantageous for me to walk around. We made a note to say, anybody storing any kind of paper, pull it out now. So then we had runners running all over the place, collecting all the paper. And we realized, okay, we do have some type of SOAP format note sheets we have. We went and got laptops and pagers from Best Buy nearby. right? We got communication channels going. I said, do you have an alternative voice over IP channel? No, let's go get one, right? Or emails and communication. So there's an entire strategy of how you try to recover from a ransomware incident. And so it was fascinating to know. So anyone want to guess what my biggest issue was? You would never guess this until you experience it.
Okay.
Any guess? All right. Young doctors. They didn't know what to do with a prescription script. They're so busy with Epic or Cerner, whichever, just clicking away with the different pathways and ordering, oh, well, this patient was this, so it's already built into, weight is this, diagnosis this, the CPT or the ICD-10 code is this, it's all built in. I click on this, dosage done, send it over to the pharmacy. Well, when you hand a young doctor a piece of paper, it's got a lot of white space in the middle, they're like, what do I do with that? And I'm like, Chief Medical Officer, please come on over here and explain this to them. But they didn't know how to even be a physician to prescribe because all of these workflows and pathways are built into the electronic health record. So it was almost like we have six younger physicians that didn't know what to do with them. And so they had to be re-taught. So it wasn't even anything to do with technically or even IT security related. But it was one of the biggest challenges I had because they started out with 6 people, then it became 10 people. And by the time I was done, I had about 250 physicians that didn't know how to write a script. And for a level 1 trauma center or level 3 trauma center, that's a big deal. So how do I take care of what's happening technically, bringing up the systems? So luckily they had backup, so we got that done. But remember, this was a 30-day event. Most disaster recovery plans are written for how many? 96 hours, maybe? Typically. I mean, that's what we're advised, right? Based on different regulations and compliance manuals, audits. Do you have 96 hours? Yes, we do 96 hours. But what about 30 days? If you had to be part of something for 30 days, could you do it today? So that got me thinking when I got to the University of Illinois, Chicago, it's almost like a Fortune 500 company within the city of Chicago. It's that large, right? 16 different colleges, 35,000 students, 25,000 employees. I have academics, I have research, and I've got a hospital here also. And, we are state funded, so we have to do what the state tells us. But we also have to work with every other state organization within the city. So one of the things I did recently, and it was fascinating, and I would encourage all of you to look into something like this too, is I partnered with the Texas A&M University's Emergency Steering Extension Center. And basically, it's an organization that will come out to your organization to do a 3-day intensive emergency operations center 3-day activity related to a cybersecurity incident. So if the city of Chicago's water supply went down, what do we all do today? Go buy bottled water, right? What would the university do if the sanitation went away? Can't use the bathroom, where do you go? You find all the other places too. But if that went down because we had no water supply, what would you do, right? So based on that, in the 3 days, I invited everybody at the university and said, okay, whoever wants to be part of this, you come and it's for free. I got Texas and A&M, we worked out certain things, and we were able to do this for free for whoever wanted to show up within the city of Chicago. So I got the Cook County Sheriff's Department to come in because our police officers for the university are also City of Chicago police officers and also part of the Cook County Sheriff's Department too. So, it's interesting where they took most of the seats that I had available. They're like, oh, we want a part of this because they know what happens in a city if something were to go wrong, right? Because it's a simple cybersecurity incident from a perspective when you're not involved with it, right? Because if we're all just citizens of the city of Chicago and, oh yeah, it's happening down over there by UIC, well, it's my world, right? So based on that, I have to really think through Democratic Convention coming up, right? Close by here, anything is possible. So we ran through for 3 days straight. I told everyone, forget who you are. When you walk in that door for 3 days, you will be assigned your own identity and your personality and your work and your accountability. You are no longer the CISO. You're no longer the CIO. You're no longer the cost analyst. You are just who you get assigned to be. for those 3 days. Now, how many of you would like to be assigned something you would know nothing about? One. One person. So it was a unique experience where I had people come in from all over the place. And we had about 50 people that signed up to do this. So now here we are, we're working through the Texas A&M folks come in with their own laptops and portals, and we're going through scenarios. And so the first thing is to assign everyone an identity. And so I knew ahead of time that I was going to be the cost analyst, the person that had to do the least. I just had to sit in front of the laptop and go, you want to buy that? Okay, enter, you got it. And the workflow goes somewhere else. So of course, you get assigned in different teams. The way the teams work.
Good.
Okay. So the way the teams work is you have incident command, right? We all know incident command's got to exist. We have management. Then we have financial and logistics. Then we have operations, right? And then we have communication. So there's about 5 or 6 different teams that we all get different jerseys to wear. Different colors mean different things. And so based on that, I chose finance and logistics. I wanted to be the lowest man on the totem pole for that day. Each of the 3 days was a different scenario and complexity. And so I was a cost analyst. So of course, we get our incident. The water system has been taken down at UIC. What do we do because there's a cybersecurity incident? Well, everybody in the room looked at me. I'm like, oh no, I'm cost analyst. I know nothing. I just know how to push this button. So then the panic started in the room. They're like, well, what do we do? Who do we talk to? Folks didn't know what to do because they were assigned. Someone was assigned a CISO. And it happened to be a person that was working in the College of Medicine. And they were the IT guy. But they didn't know what to do. And so they're just kind of walking around going, okay, what do I do? Who do I talk to? And they're looking at me, and I said, no, sorry, I can't do it. I'm a cost analyst. And I had to repeat myself, I think probably 6 to 7 times before they got it that I'm not going to help them. Although I wanted to, but I had to play my part. This is Emergency Operations Center. They need to know what they don't know, right? And so based on that, there are times where they're like, Shefali, nope. But I had to be a little bit more, put my foot down saying no. And they're like, you're me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm a cost analyst. It's all about the money to me right now. And I'm making a point here is because as we think of different musicians and the different styles of music that they play, we all have different roles that we play in an emergency operations center. And if you've never been part of one, I would encourage you to do, because it's nothing like a tabletop. This was not a tabletop. We were in multiple rooms. I had, put together different rooms where you had to go talk to the fire chief. You had to go talk to the mayor. You had to go talk and present to management in a different room. Not everybody was included as part of all of this, right? And so we had operations, and everybody had a piece of communication. Now, how many of you guys think, and gals think, that the Emergency Operations Center is there to save people?
Yeah.
You think that's logically right? They're there to help people in need? Wrong. One of the key takeaways I had was the self-realization was the Emergency Operations Center is really there to take care of the people that are in the Emergency Operations Center, because if they're not being taken care of in the EOC, then there's no one to help at all. So it was interesting what we learned is for that 3 days of intensity, it was frustrating because you had work you had to get done. Timing was of essence where, certain things need to be ordered, such as, the water supply went down. Okay, now how do we bring water to the university? We had to go buy bottled water. Well, wait a second. You got to put an order in first to go get the water. Then it goes to logistics, and they got to go find the cheapest water bottles because there's going to be about 25,000 of them. And then it's only 25,000 for the first time, but then it's 25,000 for the second time. And you've got to constantly keep that going, constantly paying for that, right? So I was very busy buying water bottles just for day one. Day one, it was all about the water. But then what happens is, oh, wait, okay, day 2 comes around. Day 2 comes around, and you get a whole new identity, a whole new team. You're all shuffled up among other people you don't know. And, this is, again, the people that showed up were University of Illinois, Chicago students, employees, Cook County sheriffs, agents, cyber intelligence agents as well. We had about 2 people from the mayor's office that were part of this to understand what's really happening, being a large organization with so many buildings across campus. So what was really fascinating with day 2, our scenario was, oh, do you have a question? Oh, you're sorry. So day 2 scenario was, well, so first day was water was out because of a cybersecurity incident. Day 2, the HVAC system went down because someone hacked it. So the security team is doing what they need to do, right? And we're broken up into the same 5 to 6 different teams, right? So to remind you, financial logistics is one team, operations is another, management is one, incident command is another, and then the last one is communications. So 5 teams, if you don't know, should have those as part of, you know, the musical sheets that you put together to play your music, to create your song. 5 different notes you should know. And based on that, you know, we learned that, so day 2, HVAC system goes out. What does that mean? No heating, no cooling, and we were assigned a day in December, close to Christmas. So the good news was most of the students were out of the university because they're all on Christmas break. So at least they gave us that. But we still had no heat and no cooling. So how am I supposed to take care of my data center if I've got no cooling going on? What are we going to do? Right? That was one thing that came to mind. Number 2, it's in the middle of winter. How are we going to heat the buildings that still have, you know, employees working there, right? So we have to think of that. What's the implication there? We have to go get portable heaters. But then, you know, portable heaters, not a lot of people buy those. So when you look at different, like we had to go to Costco, we had to go to Menards, we had to go to Lowe's, we had to go to Kmart or, you know, Walmart, wherever. We had to go find them. And there was an inventory list and you had to pick out where you could go buy these. And of course, there was a shortage because we weren't the only ones out with an HVAC. Also, there were 3 other organizations within the city of Chicago that got hit with the same ransomware through their HVAC system. It was a dedicated ransomware attack. So now we find out that there's others, right? So we're all playing different roles again, and they're like, Shefali, I'm like, nope. This time around, I was part of the operations team, but I was just a communicator within the operations team. Again, I wanted a low-level, low-profile. I didn't want to do much work because I do a lot of work elsewhere. So based on that, again, you know, so I'm just kind of looking at, you know, operations and ordering what I need to, communicate what I need to. But we had flip charts, we had Post-it notes in this big room. We had 6 other rooms designated for like breakout rooms because the mayor always wanted to know what was going on. So we had to have a chief who wanted to be a chief. Nobody wanted to be a chief. And they found out that, well, so the Texas A&M folks chose somebody since nobody wanted to be it. So they're like, hey, you do it. And I'm like, I'm not doing it because I'm already chief, but in a different life. So in this life, I need to be born here. So the second day, HVAC system goes down. So what did we learn from that? What we learned was nobody knew what was going on. Nobody thought that an HVAC system could be hacked. Nobody thought that, you know, we should be looking at facilities management as part of security. We tend to forget physical security quite a bit. You know, we're always looking at that virus or the ransomware that's going to come through, but never heating and cooling. And if you do, kudos to you. It's great that you consider it because it should be considered like any other device, right? So we had to really look at IoT and OT type of devices in this second day. Well, how are we supposed to know it was really the HVAC system in that building? How did we identify it? We just know that we have an incident that was, you know, reported. So now we had to try to figure out which building's HVAC system was the one that got hacked. You got to start, you know, looking at inventory. So long story short, as I look at us putting together a musical song today, this afternoon, understand your disaster recovery plan, your business continuity plan, your downtime procedures, understand the skill set you have available during your disaster recovery time. Because we forget that skill set. Remember talking about the prescription scripts that the young doctors didn't even know how to fill out? That was problematic because what if they chose the wrong dosage and that patient passed away or had a response that we didn't want, right? So things like this really come together because we are part of an orchestra, and to make the orchestra work, we've got to have these plans in place. And even if you don't test them, if you even just have them printed out and you go over them, but to do an emergency operations center exercise, a real exercise like this, you're carving out time, it makes a difference. It really helps you know what you don't know. So let's make this music work well together, knowing, you know, what we don't know. Thank you.